Story: Millionaire husband sent a breakup text to the wrong number. The pregnant wife replied, "Come over. I'll make you forget." Disclaimer: this is a fictional story created solely for entertainment. All characters, companies, properties, financial records, and events are invented. Any resemblance to real people, businesses, or situations is coincidental. Before we begin, imagine being 7 months pregnant and receiving the one text your husband never meant you to see. Stay to the end, because the reply Madeline sends will expose far more than an affair. If you enjoy emotional stories about family, consequences, and second chances at life, subscribe and tell us in the comments what you would have done. Now, back to the rainy Manhattan night, when one wrong message changed everything. Sometimes a marriage doesn't end with a scream. Sometimes it ends with a message meant for someone else. The phone buzzed at 11:47 p.m. Madeline Prescott almost ignored it. She stood alone beneath the warm pendant lights of the kitchen in their Upper East Side townhouse, 7 months pregnant, folding a tiny white onesie across her belly while rain whispered against the windows. Upstairs, the nursery waited half-finished. A wooden crib, 3 stuffed rabbits, pale yellow curtains Ethan had promised to hang 2 Sundays ago. He had promised many things lately. The phone that buzzed was not Maddie's ordinary personal line. It was an older business number she had used during the early years of Prescott development and still kept because a handful of longtime design contacts called it. Ethan had not used or memorized that number in years. Vanessa Rowe, meanwhile, had recently changed the private number she used with Ethan. He had deliberately left it unsaved and usually typed it from a locked note. That night, in a hurry, he entered the final digits incorrectly. The message landed on Maddie's old line. From Ethan. "It's over. I can't keep doing this. Delete everything. Don't call me again." For several seconds, she simply stared. The refrigerator hummed. Rain tapped the glass. Inside her, the baby kicked once. Her first thought was absurdly innocent. Maybe Ethan had fired someone. Maybe there was some business problem at Prescott Development. Then she looked again at the wording. Delete everything. Don't call me again. This was not how her husband dismissed an employee. It was how someone ended something personal. Maddie checked the number receiving the message. Her old business line. Ethan had not texted his wife's saved contact. He had typed a number manually and reached a number he no longer associated with her. That was the opening. Stay with me, because what Madeline did next would turn one careless wrong number text into the mistake Ethan Prescott would spend the rest of his life wishing he could erase. Maddie lowered herself slowly onto a kitchen stool. Her honey blonde hair fell across her pale face as she stared at Ethan's name glowing on the screen. She didn't call him. She didn't demand an explanation. She didn't cry. Not yet. Instead, she looked around the beautiful kitchen they had designed together when Ethan's company finally became successful. Italian marble, brass fixtures, a wine refrigerator she could no longer use. Everything polished enough to reflect the life everyone believed they had. Millionaire developer Ethan Prescott. His beautiful pregnant wife. Their first child. The perfect American family. Maddie placed one hand over her stomach. Another kick. Stronger this time. "I know, sweetheart," she whispered. Her voice cracked. For months, she had been collecting little moments she refused to call evidence. Ethan turning his phone face down at dinner. Showers immediately after coming home. Business trips added without warning. A perfume she didn't own lingering on his coat. Each one had arrived with an explanation. Tonight, the explanation stopped working. Maddie looked back at the message, and something inside her changed. Not loudly, quietly, the way ice forms over deep water. Her fingers moved across the screen. "Come over. I'll make you forget." She pressed send. Her heartbeat became deafening. 10 seconds. 20. Then 3 gray dots appeared. Ethan was typing. They vanished. Returned. Maddie could hear nothing now except the rain and the blood pounding behind her ears. Finally, his reply appeared. Same place. Maddie's eyes narrowed. Same place. 2 words. 2 words that told her there had been enough meetings to create a routine. Enough lies to create an address. Enough betrayal to have a place of its own. Maddie swallowed, forcing her trembling fingers still. She had no idea where same place was. Not yet. But Ethan didn't know that. She typed one word. Yes. The message showed delivered. Across town, her millionaire husband believed he was talking to his mistress. And in the silent kitchen, beneath a half-finished nursery, The woman he had underestimated had just opened the first door into his secret life. 6 months earlier, Madeline Prescott still believed distance was something love could survive. Back then, Ethan kissed her before leaving for work. At least most mornings. He would stand beneath the chandelier in their foyer, immaculate in a charcoal suit, one hand holding his briefcase, while the other rested briefly against Maddie's growing belly. Take care of my girls. My girls. She had loved those words. Ethan Prescott had built his reputation from ambition, discipline, and a talent for making wealthy people trust him with expensive buildings. At 37, he controlled a real estate company worth millions. Business magazines photographed him beside glass towers and called him a visionary. But Maddie remembered the man before the photographs. The man eating takeout beside her at midnight because they couldn't afford another employee. The man whose first office had stained carpet and a broken air conditioner. She had been there. She had designed presentations, entertained investors, corrected proposals, and stayed awake beside him when Prescott Development was little more than a name printed on cheap business cards. Then success came, slowly at first, then all at once. And somewhere inside that success, Ethan began coming home later. The first time Maddie noticed another woman's perfume on his jacket, she was 5 months pregnant. It was floral, sweet, nothing like the clean citrus fragrance she wore. She held the jacket for several seconds before asking him. Ethan barely looked up from his phone. Client hugged me after dinner. Simple, reasonable, almost boring. So Maddie believed him. 2 weeks later, she found a hotel charge from Manhattan on a night Ethan claimed he had been meeting contractors in Greenwich. Accounting mistake, he said. He kissed her forehead. By morning, the charge had disappeared from their shared statement. Then came the phone. Face down during dinner. Face down beside the bed. Face down whenever Maddie entered the room. Once, at 2:13 in the morning, she woke and found Ethan standing on their balcony in freezing rain, whispering into it. When he returned, she asked who had called. Tokyo. At 2 in the morning? It's afternoon there, Maddie. He smiled as if explaining something to a child. She apologized. That memory hurt differently now. Standing in the kitchen at 11:52 p.m., Maddie could suddenly see the architecture of the lie. Not one enormous betrayal. Hundreds of tiny ones. Each small enough to forgive. Together, large enough to bury a marriage. Her phone remained silent after Ethan's final message. Yes, she had written. He believed her. That was her advantage. Maddie walked upstairs slowly, one hand supporting the underside of her belly. She passed their wedding photograph in the hallway. Ethan in black, Maddie in white, his forehead pressed against hers. She stopped. For one dangerous second, she wanted to tear it from the wall. Instead, she kept walking. Anger could wait. Evidence could not. Inside Ethan's home office, everything looked obsessively organized. Leather chair. Walnut desk. Awards positioned beneath recessed lighting. Maddie opened one drawer. Nothing. Another. Nothing. Then her eyes landed on an old silver iPad beneath a stack of architectural magazines. She remembered it immediately. Ethan had replaced it months ago, but he had never logged out. Maddie pressed the button. The screen illuminated. Her pulse jumped. For digits. She entered their daughter's expected birth date. Wrong. She tried Ethan's birthday. Wrong. Then their wedding anniversary. Click. The screen opened. Maddie almost laughed. Almost. His calendar synchronized first. Then emails. Then location history. She stared at the map. One address appeared again. And again. Tuesday nights. Thursday nights. Sometimes Saturday afternoons when Ethan claimed he was at the office. The Carlisle residences. 17 minutes from their house. Maddie enlarged the map. Her baby kicked beneath her hand. This time, Maddie didn't whisper reassurance. She simply stared at the glowing red location marker. Because lies were no longer scattered around her marriage. They finally had an address. At 12:06 a.m., Madeline Prescott discovered that betrayal could have a street address. The Carlisle residences. She stared at the glowing red marker on Ethan's old iPad until the letters blurred. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. Again, again, again. The pattern stretched back nearly 5 months. Maddie felt something cold settle beneath her ribs. 5 months ago, she had been 20 weeks pregnant. 5 months ago, Ethan had knelt beside her after their ultrasound, kissed her stomach, and whispered that he had never been happier. That same evening, according to the location history, he had spent 3 hours at the Carlisle. Who are you? Maddie whispered. She wasn't sure whether she meant the woman or her husband. The baby shifted inside her. Maddie closed her eyes for 1 second. Then she kept searching. The Carlisle wasn't a hotel. It was a luxury residential tower owned through several investment entities. Ethan's company developed properties exactly like it. That mattered. Maddie opened the synchronized company email. Search. Carlisle. Dozens of messages appeared. Maintenance reports. Insurance documents. Lease agreements. Then one subject line stopped her. Unit 1804, renewal approval. Her finger froze. The tenant wasn't Ethan Prescott. It was Bellwether Holdings, LLC. Maddie knew that name. Years earlier, when Prescott Development was still fighting for survival, she had helped Ethan organize dozens of shell companies used to hold individual properties. Bellwether was one of his. This wasn't a hotel room rented during a reckless affair. It was permanent. A secret apartment paid for through his business. A second life with monthly expenses. Maddie opened another email. Flowers. Champagne. Cleaning service. Every charge approved by Ethan's office. Her stomach tightened. Then she saw the recipient name attached to a delivery authorization. Vanessa Rowe. For a moment, Maddie heard nothing. Not the rain. Not the clock. Not even her own breathing. Vanessa. The woman who ran public relations for Prescott Development. The woman who had attended Maddie's baby shower 6 weeks earlier wearing a cream silk dress and carrying a hand-wrapped gift. Maddie could still see her smiling. Could still feel Vanessa's manicured hand resting against her pregnant belly. You two are going to be such wonderful parents. Maddie pushed away from the desk. The chair rolled backward. No, but the screen didn't care what she wanted to believe. She searched Vanessa's name. A partially deleted message thread appeared. Most of it was gone. Not all. I'm tired of waiting. Then Ethan. Not now. Vanessa. You said after the baby. Maddie stopped. After the baby? Her hand moved protectively over her stomach. Another recovered fragment appeared. You promised me you'd leave her. Ethan's answer came beneath it. I said I would handle Maddie. Handle Maddie. Not talk to her. Not divorce her. Handle her. A chill crawled across Maddie's skin. Then everything changed again. The iPad chimed. A new message had synchronized from Ethan's phone. Vanessa, why did you send that, and then disappear? Ethan, answer me. Maddie stared. Vanessa had received something. But Ethan believed he had been texting her tonight. Which meant the breakup message Maddie received had been intended for Vanessa. For one brief, desperate second, relief tried to enter her chest. Maybe Ethan was ending it. Maybe he had chosen his family. Then another synchronized message appeared. Vanessa, you don't get to dump me because I asked you to keep your promise. A second followed. You said you'd divorce her after she gives birth. Maddie's eyes filled, but no tears fell. Now she understood. Ethan wasn't ending the affair because he loved his wife. He was ending it because his mistress had stopped accepting her place in the shadows. The phone beside Maddie suddenly buzzed. Ethan. One new message. Bring the papers tomorrow. Maddie stared at those 4 words. She had no idea what papers he meant. But for the first time that night, she smiled. It wasn't happiness. It was the expression of a woman who had just realized her husband was willing to deliver the next piece of evidence himself. The most dangerous thing Madeline Prescott did that night was not confront her husband. It was pretend she knew more than she did. At 12:14 a.m., Maddie sat behind Ethan's walnut desk with one hand resting over her unborn daughter and the other wrapped around her phone. Bring the papers tomorrow. 4 words. She read them again. What papers? Divorce papers? Property documents? Something involving Vanessa? One wrong question could expose everything. If Maddie called Ethan now, he would lie. If she accused him, he would delete the messages. If she mentioned the Carlisle, apartment 1804 might be empty before sunrise. And if 6 years of marriage had taught her anything, it was this. Ethan Prescott was never more careful than when he knew someone was watching. So Maddie gave him exactly what he expected. Nothing. She waited. 30 seconds. 1 minute. Then she typed. Tomorrow is too late. Her thumb hovered above send. Click. Delivered. The 3 gray dots appeared almost immediately. What are you talking about? Maddie's heartbeat climbed. She could almost hear Vanessa's voice in her head. Angry. Impatient. Tired of waiting. She needed to sound like a woman who already knew the plan, not a wife desperately trying to discover it. Maddie typed slowly. Come over tonight. A pause. Then, Vanessa, we agreed tomorrow. There it was. Her name. Written by him. No explanation could erase it now. Maddie swallowed the ache rising in her throat and continued. Bring the papers. This time Ethan didn't answer. 5 minutes passed. The nursery monitor on the desk showed an empty crib beneath a soft amber night light. Maddie stared at it. That crib was supposed to belong to a child entering a safe home. Instead, her father was somewhere in the city negotiating the destruction of that home before she had even been born. The phone buzzed. What papers? Maddie froze. She had pushed too far. For 1 second, panic moved through her like electricity. Then she remembered Vanessa's message. You promised me after the baby. Ethan had made a plan. Plans created paperwork. Maddie took the risk. The ones you said would take care of Maddie. She sent it. Silence. 10 seconds. 20. 40. No typing dots. Maddie's palms began to sweat. Had he realized? Was he calling Vanessa? Then the phone buzzed. Jesus, Vanessa. Don't put that in writing. Maddie's blood went cold. Not because he denied it. Because he understood exactly what she meant. Another message arrived. I'll bring everything. Maddie stared at the screen. Everything. One word suddenly heavier than all the others. She photographed the conversation with a second device. Then she emailed copies of the synchronized records to an account Ethan didn't know existed. Only after the evidence was safe did she allow herself to breathe. At 12:31 a.m., Ethan sent the final message. 1804, 20 minutes. Apartment 1804. The Carlisle. Maddie stood. Her knees trembled, but her face had become strangely calm. She changed into a dark wool coat, slipped the iPad into her handbag, and looked once at herself in the hallway mirror. 7 months pregnant. Blonde hair pulled loosely behind her shoulders. Blue-gray eyes swollen with exhaustion. She didn't look powerful. That was exactly why Ethan had underestimated her. Before leaving, Maddie stopped beneath their wedding photograph. 6 years earlier, Ethan had promised to protect her. Tonight, he was bringing documents designed to take care of her to an apartment he shared with another woman. Maddie turned off the hallway light. Outside, the rain had become harder. She walked toward her car without an umbrella. Because 20 minutes from now, Ethan Prescott was going to open the door to apartment 1804 expecting his mistress. Instead, his pregnant wife would be waiting inside. And she intended to let him explain everything before he realized he needed to lie. Maddie, this isn't what you think. Ethan Prescott said it too quickly. The oldest sentence in the liar's handbook. Madeline remained seated beneath the warm apartment light, 7 months pregnant, one hand resting over her belly while her husband stood 6 feet away holding the envelope that was supposed to help erase her from his empire. Then tell me what I think. Ethan blinked. For once, the millionaire who could control a boardroom with 3 senses had none. Finally, he exhaled. Vanessa made this complicated. There it was. Not remorse. Blame. She pursued me. I made a mistake. A mistake. A few weeks. Maybe longer. It meant nothing. Maddie looked toward the photographs lining the shelf. Napa. Christmas. The beach. 5 months of Tuesday and Thursday nights. Which week was Napa? Ethan's face tightened. Maddie, you're pregnant. You're exhausted. This kind of stress isn't good for the baby. She almost laughed. He was doing it again. Turning his betrayal into her instability. Making her reaction more dangerous than his behavior. Maddie extended her hand. The envelope. No, then why did you bring it? Ethan's expression changed. Only slightly. But she saw it. Fear. Maddie stood carefully. Give me the envelope, Ethan. It's a routine marital agreement connected to refinancing. The one you were going to trick me into signing? I never said trick. You said I wouldn't understand the financial structure. Silence. Ethan finally realized she had heard him enter. He placed the envelope on the table. Maddie opened it. The first pages looked harmless. Legal language. Corporate restructuring. Asset classifications. Then she reached the clauses Ethan had hoped she would never read carefully. Waiver of future claims. Separate property acknowledgments. Limitations on interests connected to Prescott development. Her eyes moved faster. Companies she recognized appeared beneath unfamiliar holding entities. Properties shifted. Ownership reorganized. Money disappearing behind paperwork. This removes my claims to assets accumulated during our marriage. It protects the company. From whom? Ethan's jaw hardened. From uncertainty. Maddie looked up. Me. He said nothing. She turned another page. Attached behind the agreement were printed emails between Ethan and corporate counsel. Prepare restructuring before marital filing. Avoid unnecessary disclosure until execution. Execution. The word looked surgical. Then Maddie found a projected timeline. Postnup. Refinancing. Childbirth. Separation. Divorce. Her due date sat between two corporate deadlines like an administrative inconvenience. You planned it. Maddie, you were waiting until after Lily was born. Ethan stepped closer. I built this company from nothing. The words struck harder than the affair. Maddie slowly raised her eyes. We built it. No, his voice sharpened. You helped. There's a difference. The room became very quiet. She remembered unpaid nights correcting investor decks. The first office. The broken air conditioner. The money from her savings that covered payroll when Ethan couldn't. All of it reduced to one word. Helped. Maddie closed the folder. When did you stop loving me? For the first time, Ethan didn't manufacture an answer. His face became cold. This isn't about love. It's about what I built. Maddie stared at him. Then she nodded once. We built it. A sound came from the hallway. Footsteps. Fast. High heels against polished stone. Ethan turned toward the door. His face changed immediately. No, the electronic lock beeped. Once. Then the handle moved. Maddie watched her husband go pale. Because only 3 people knew the code to apartment 1804. Ethan, the building manager, and the woman whose perfume was still sitting beside his razor. The door opened. Vanessa Rowe stepped inside. She saw Ethan first. Then Maddie. Then the postnuptial agreement lying open on the table. Nobody spoke. 3 people. 1 apartment. 2 women who had been promised completely different futures. And 1 man who had just run out of lies big enough to contain them both. You told me she would never know about this place. Vanessa Rowe's voice broke the silence. She stood inside apartment 1804 with rain shining across the shoulders of her black coat, one hand still gripping the door handle. Her eyes moved from Ethan to Maddie, then to the postnuptial agreement. Ethan recovered first. Vanessa, leave. No, now. Vanessa laughed once. There was nothing amused about it. You send me a breakup text, disappear, and suddenly your wife is sitting in my apartment? Your apartment? Maddie said it quietly. Vanessa looked at her. For a moment, the 2 women simply stared at each other. Ethan stepped between them. Maddie, don't listen to her. That was his mistake. Because Maddie wasn't looking at Ethan anymore. She was looking at Vanessa. He told you he was leaving me after the baby, didn't he? Vanessa's expression changed. Barely. But enough. Don't answer that. Ethan snapped. Maddie almost smiled. You told her not to put things in writing. Now you're telling her not to speak. Maddie. She raised one hand. Ethan stopped. Then Maddie turned back to Vanessa. He told me you meant nothing. The words landed differently than an insult. Vanessa's face hardened. What? He said you pursued him. That it was a mistake. A few weeks. Vanessa looked at Ethan. A few weeks. Vanessa, she's manipulating you. 18 months. Silence. Maddie felt the room tilt. Vanessa's voice became colder. We've been together 18 months. 18. Long before the pregnancy. Long before the baby shower. Long before Maddie had started questioning perfume and hotel charges. Vanessa stepped toward Ethan. You told me the marriage was over. It was complicated. You said she knew. Maddie's eyes narrowed. I knew. Vanessa turned toward her. He said you were staying together for appearances. Then you got pregnant, and he said he needed time. Ethan's polished mask began to crack. Both of you need to stop. Neither woman did. Vanessa looked at the open documents. Is that the agreement? Maddie nodded. Something like disgust crossed Vanessa's face. He told me once you signed it, he could file. Ethan lunged for the folder. Maddie pulled it away. Don't. His eyes flashed. For the first time that night, she saw anger replace calculation. You have no idea what you're doing. Vanessa laughed bitterly. Oh, she knows more than you think. Ethan turned. Shut up. No. Vanessa reached into her handbag. I covered for you for 18 months. The Carlisle. Napa. The expense reports. All because you said we had a future. Maddie went still. Expense reports? Ethan's face drained. Vanessa looked directly at Maddie. He used company money. Vanessa. Apartment fees. Flights. Restaurants. Gifts. He buried them under client entertainment and development expenses. Ethan stepped forward. Give me your phone. Vanessa backed away. No, give it to me. He grabbed for it. Maddie instinctively moved between them. The edge of Ethan's hand struck the table. A champagne glass toppled. It hit the marble floor. Crack. Crystal exploded across the room. Everyone froze. Maddie's baby kicked violently. She covered her belly. Ethan stared at her. For 1 second, shame flickered across his face, then vanished. Vanessa slowly raised her phone. I kept copies. Ethan stopped breathing. Copies of what? Everything. She looked at Maddie. Payments. Emails. Transfers. Then she delivered the sentence Ethan had been terrified to hear. There's another account. Maddie stared at her. What account? Vanessa's eyes never left Ethan. The one he told me you would never find. Outside, thunder rolled over the city. Inside apartment 1804, Maddie finally understood that the affair was only the surface. Whatever Ethan Prescott had been hiding beneath, it was big enough to frighten a millionaire. Maddie did not assume the draft could simply erase her rights. The next morning, her family law attorney explained that New York divorce law distinguishes marital property from separate property and that a proposed postnuptial agreement is not magic merely because a wealthy spouse puts it in a leather folder. She was told not to sign anything without independent review, full financial disclosure, and advice about the consequences. The suspicious timing and transfers were reasons to preserve records and ask questions, not proof that she automatically owned Ethan's company or that he had committed a crime. That distinction mattered to Maddie. She wanted facts strong enough to survive daylight, not accusations strong enough to win a dramatic argument. 3 weeks later, Ethan Prescott walked into his own boardroom believing money could still buy silence. He was wrong. 32 floors above Manhattan, morning sunlight poured through the glass walls of Prescott Development. 11 board members sat around a polished black table. Nobody touched the coffee. Nobody made small talk. At 9:03 a.m., Ethan entered wearing a navy suit and the expression of a man accustomed to having rooms wait for him. Then he saw Maddie. She sat at the opposite end of the table, 7 months pregnant, honey blonde hair falling neatly over a cream coat, one hand resting calmly on her belly. Beside her sat independent counsel and a forensic accountant. Maddie was there at the special committee's request to authenticate the records she had provided and answer limited questions. She was not a director and would not vote on anything. Ethan stopped. What is she doing here? Nobody answered. The chairman closed the door. Click. That tiny sound changed everything. For 3 weeks, Maddie had done exactly what Ethan never expected. She had stayed quiet. No social media accusations. No screaming interviews. No revenge posts. She gave the documents to attorneys and independent investigators. Vanessa gave them copies of emails, payments, reimbursement requests, and records connected to the hidden account. Then the accountants followed the money. And money, unlike Ethan, had no talent for lying. The screen behind the chairman illuminated. Carlisle Residences, Unit 1804. Then came the payments. Rent disguised as development expenses. Napa flights categorized as investor relations. Luxury dinners billed as client meetings. Gifts routed through corporate accounts. Ethan leaned forward. This is being taken completely out of context. Another slide appeared. Bellwether Holdings. Transfers. Dates. Approvals carrying Ethan's authorization. His face tightened. That entity is legally controlled. Yes, the accountant said. That's the problem. The next document appeared. A transfer schedule showing assets being moved before the planned postnuptial agreement. Then an email. Prepare restructuring before marital filing. Nobody gasped. That was worse. One by one, board members lowered their eyes to the documents in front of them. Ethan looked toward Maddie. You did this. Maddie held his gaze. No, her voice was almost gentle. You did. Silence. Ethan pushed back his chair. This company exists because of me. Maddie remembered apartment 1804. What I built. The same sentence. The same arrogance. But this time, there were witnesses. The chairman folded his hands. Effective immediately, Ethan, you are suspended pending a full investigation. Ethan stared at him. You can't be serious. I am. I own this company. You own shares. You do not own the board. That sentence landed like a hammer. Ethan turned toward Maddie again. This is what you wanted? To destroy Lily's father? Maddie's expression changed. Not anger. Something colder. You used our daughter's birth as a deadline for hiding assets. Ethan opened his mouth. Nothing came. For once, there was no explanation large enough. Vanessa was placed on paid administrative leave while independent counsel reviewed her role in the expense approvals. Her voluntary cooperation would matter later, but the board refused to announce a final employment conclusion before the review was complete. Maddie asked for no empire, no revenge fortune, no applause. She asked her attorneys for lawful protection of her marital interests, her child, and the contributions Ethan had spent years pretending she never made. At 10:41 a.m., Ethan exited the building through a lobby crowded with employees who had already heard about his suspension. Nobody clapped. Nobody shouted. They simply watched. The elevator doors closed behind him. Upstairs, Maddie remained beside the windows. Her phone buzzed. A message from Ethan. "You've ruined everything." Maddie read it once, then deleted nothing. She had learned that lesson. Evidence stayed. Promises disappeared. And as Manhattan moved beneath her, Maddie placed both hands around the life growing inside her and finally understood the difference between revenge and justice. Revenge needed Ethan to suffer. Justice only needed the truth to remain standing when he didn't. 9 months later, Madeline Prescott woke to a sound that once would have terrified her. Her phone buzzed. She opened her eyes. Morning sunlight spilled through pale yellow curtains, warming the quiet bedroom. For a moment, Maddie didn't move. Then a tiny sound came from her chest. Lily, now 6 months old, her daughter slept curled against her, one miniature fist tucked beneath her chin, breathing with the soft rhythm Maddie had once feared she might never hear in peace. The nursery curtains were finally hanging. Maddie had hung them herself, not because she had to, because she could. The divorce judgment had been entered several weeks earlier after months of disclosure, valuation, and negotiation. The forensic investigation continued separately, but Ethan no longer controlled Prescott development. The board had removed him from executive authority after investigators documented the concealed expenses and financial restructuring. The negotiated settlement addressed the marital estate, support, and Lily's needs without pretending that marriage made every corporate share automatically Maddie's. It gave her the protections and property interests resolved through counsel. Nothing magical, nothing punitive. Her life had not become a fairy tale. It had become something she valued more. Stable, honest, and finally her own. Maddie had simply stopped allowing the man who betrayed her to define what she deserved. Her phone buzzed again. She reached carefully toward the nightstand without waking Lily. Ethan. She stared at the name. Months ago, seeing it could change her heartbeat. Now it was only a name on glass. She opened the message. "Can we talk?" Maddie said nothing. Another appeared. "I made the biggest mistake of my life." She looked down at Lily. The baby stretched in her sleep. Maddie remembered another night. 11:47 p.m. Rain against the kitchen windows. A white onesie folded beneath her hands. "It's over. Delete everything. Don't call me again." The wrong text. Such a small mistake. One careless movement of Ethan's thumb had exposed 18 months of betrayal. Apartment 1804, the postnuptial agreement, hidden expenses, and a plan built around the birth of his own daughter. But Maddie understood something now. The text hadn't destroyed their marriage. It had only turned on the light. Her phone buzzed a third time. "Please." Then, "Just come over." Maddie froze. 3 words. For a second, she could almost smell the rain from that night. "Come over. I'll make you forget." She had typed those words pretending to be another woman. Back then, she needed Ethan to believe the door was open. Now there was no trap, no investigation, no evidence left to uncover. Only a choice. Maddie rose and carried Lily toward the window. Outside, early spring sunlight touched the trees. Somewhere below, a delivery truck stopped. A dog barked. Someone laughed. Ordinary sounds. She had forgotten how beautiful ordinary could be. Lily opened her blue eyes. "Good morning," Maddie whispered. The baby yawned. Maddie smiled. Behind her, the phone buzzed again. She didn't turn around. For years, Ethan had believed every problem could be negotiated. Every betrayal explained. Every person persuaded. Every door reopened if he knocked with enough money, charm, or regret. But some doors were not locked out of anger. They were closed because there was finally something worth protecting on the other side. Maddie kissed Lily's forehead. Across the room, the phone screen went dark. No reply. No dramatic final speech. No revenge. Just silence. And somewhere else, Ethan Prescott finally received the answer he had once sent so casually to the wrong person. It was over. Maddie looked into her daughter's face and walked away from the phone. Some men lose money and call it tragedy. Some lose power and call it betrayal. Ethan lost the woman who once believed him, and only when she stopped answering did he understand what her trust had been worth. Maddie did not teach Lily that forgiveness meant reopening every door. She taught her something gentler. People can accept responsibility. Parents can cooperate without pretending a marriage still exists, and a peaceful home can be built without humiliating the person who broke the first one. Ethan would remain Lily's father, subject to the parenting arrangements they made through counsel. Maddie's future, however, no longer depended on whether he regretted the past.